Hey guys, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to another QuickTank review. This time we're looking at the PZSFL-5. This is the Tier 7 German tank destroyer which is situated down the new branch. This new branch, if you didn't know, specializes in very light armor, which is made up for by generally a rather outstanding gun on each of the tanks. I'm going to tell you everything that you need to know about the PZSFL, hopefully give you a few tips on how to use this tank, although I will admit right off the bat that I have been struggling with it. And for all of you guys out there who maybe meet these things on the battlefield and are very worried about them, I'll hopefully be able to tell you how to take them out effectively. So this German Tier 7 tank destroyer has got 850 hit points, it weighs just shy of 37 tons when it's fully loaded, and this weight makes its engine power of 310 brake horsepower be very underwhelming. This thing is very slow, ridiculously slow, and unless you're on a flat surface with hard ground or going slightly downhill, this thing really isn't able to get close to its 25km/h top speed limit. Now the traverse speed of the tank is not that bad, it's 34 degrees a second. But because the engine power is so low, when this machine is off a hard surface such as concrete or asphalt, that traverse speed can be rather underwhelming. Now if you thought that maybe this tank is going to be so slow that yeah, they'll give it really heavy armor. Oh no they didn't. This tank's armor is simply horrific. Let me show you quickly in a World of Tanks viewer. Here we can see the armor profile of the tank. I'll just provide the key for you here. Red is where the tank has its thickest armor, and green is where the tank has its weakest armor. However, the thickest armor on this tank is 50mm. Most tanks could sneeze through 50mm. And even though this tank looks like it's got a superstructure similar to the Ferdinand or even the Jagdtiger, it really doesn't. It's basically just a gun shield on the front of the tank. And because it's only 50mm thick, if you hit anywhere along this front surface, unless it's like ridiculously angled, it's going in. And if you do get a ridiculous angle like this, then you've only got to get through 15mm of side armor. There 15 to 20mm of side armor. You could sneeze on this with HE and still go through it. Now, interestingly, you might be thinking, oh, well, look, there's 50mm of spaced armor there on the gun mantler. That'll really help. And when we hide it, we can see that behind the gun mantler is actually basically no armor whatsoever. What this means is that if you hit this box, the green box, so to say, behind the mantlet, it's going to go in. The only hope that you have to really bounce something this PZSFL is to have really like a tier 6 kind of medium tank with a low caliber gun. Think kind of like A43 standard with a 76mm. It will have to hit you outside of the weakly armored plate behind the gun shield. Effectively, what I'm saying is that it's going to have to hit this overlap here where it has to go through 50mm spaced armor and then breach through the 50mm of superstructure behind the tank. However, really that doesn't give you very much of an area which does have effectively 100mm. And even then, we're only talking about 100mm of armor in a very small area of the tank. So really the conclusion is that this tank does not have armor. In fact, if HE damage even lands anywhere near the tank, it generally gets wrecked. Tier 5 and 6 artillery rejoice. If you see one of these on the battlefield, just target it. You're going to have a payday. So you might be forgiven so far thinking, wow, this tank sounds like garbage. It better have some serious gun power on it. And that's where you would be right, because this tank does get a 128mm cannon. The rate of fire is not bad at all, 4.35 rounds a minute, which does 490 alpha damage. That's huge. The penetration on the gun is also very healthy for tier 7 with 231mm. Unfortunately, however, this tank cannot load any kind of premium round to blast its way through some very heavily armored tier 9 tanks such as the E75 frontally. Interestingly, one thing I should highlight is that when you use this 128mm, you only get 15 shells. This is very frustrating because I would love to fire speculatively at the back with, for example, HE ammo. That kind of HE ammo with 65mm of penetration and 630 alpha damage is very nice indeed at tier 7. However, realistically, you can't afford to take that many HE rounds into combat because you only have 15 shells total. This is a pretty annoying feature of the tank. It would be lovely to just sit at the back at very long ranges and fire speculatively at your target. However, the ammo limit really prevents you from doing that, unless you've been crippled and really you know you're not going to fire all your rounds off before the end of the game. So just to look at the gun again in more detail, we can see that it's got 0.36 accuracy, which is pretty good. and 2.5 seconds aim time, which, wow, it's not amazing, but considering this is effectively a Ferdinand gun at tier 7, that's pretty darn good. Now, one thing that is excellent on this tank is the view range. The view range is 400 meters. And although this thing cannot use ventilation, as it is an open top tank, I strongly recommend to use binoculars on this tank so you can really maximize your view range and be able to spot your enemies at tremendous distances. And you're going to want to do that because you basically have no armor to be able to take any hits from them, so really you do need to get the jump on the enemy. So there's one very special feature of this tank that I will be showing in the gameplay, so let's get to it. Let's see how this tank performs in some combat. So here we go, guys. We're playing in the PZSFL. I'm playing along with Ike and with Jingles. Both myself and Jingles are playing in the PZSFL. And Ike is playing in his trusty Tiger 1. So, immediately, this is the gun depression on this tank. Look at that incredible gun depression. It's got probably the highest gun depression in the game. I'd have to check that up. I think it's probably the same as the Dicker Max, which is a tier 6 German premium tank. And basically this tank plays in a similar sort of way with regards to the gun depression. But you're seeing just how slow this tank is. We're chugging along at 20. Finally, we've reached our top speed limit. So, you want to take this tank into positions where it will be able to use its gun depression. Unfortunately, we can see the poor elevation of the tank there I'm showing you. The depression on this tank is actually a lot more than the elevation. So, I'm thinking, yep. This is where I want to be, and you're going to see just how troll this gun depression can be. Oh my word, that's a lot of tanks to shoot. Wow. We just one-hit a tier 5 tank. And that's what you can really do in these PZSFLs. Any tier 5 tank is a one-hit for you, which is pretty troll. So I don't want to get shot by the Tiger. I'm just going to pause it here for just a second. Now you think my position, I might be completely hidden from him. Let's just take a look to see exactly what he can see. So, I think that's pretty much his gun level. Let's take a look to see what he can see. He can just see the top of my tank with his gun. At the moment, he's aiming at the KV-1S. So he can barely see any of my tank. Let's see what it looks like from my perspective. All right, I nearly have a shot on his cupola. But because of the way that the tank is, and I'm up on a slope, which means the gun is effectively at this angle, so his vision is the end of my gun there. So he might be able to just catch the top of my mantlet, and that's what really you've got to think about in this tank. I highlighted in the garage, this tank has basically no armor, and unless they hit the thin outline, which is around the outside of the tank, where it will hit the mantlet and also then have to penetrate the armor, rather than the no armor that you can see there, then really you're not going to be bouncing anything. My experience is that if you can see them, they can see you in the PZSFL. You've got to watch out for that because of the top part of your tank. Especially considering I'm on a slope here, lots of players will be able to hit here specifically. And this is quite a large area because obviously I'm on a slope. This part of the tank it's effectively, this is the level here, this is the flat level. So this part of the tank is going to be sticking up quite a lot. And he can take advantage of that. But anyway, let's see what we can do to this guy. Okay, so we shot his turret. Thinking that we could be able to penetrate his turret. I should have really sniped for the cupola, but I didn't want to get hit by him. If he hits me, he shaves off nearly a quarter of my health. Wow, that was a nice bit of luck there. We absolutely massacred that SU-100, taking out his ammo rack, one-hitting him for 580 damage. So, that's 3 shots so far. 1 failed to penetrate and 2 one-hits. Now we've got the side of this Tiger. And unfortunately, what you saw there, that's a very important part. You'll notice that the gun arc is very slight indeed. I had to get used to it in this tank. I still didn't quite get used to it even when I sort of felt like I finished up with the tank. What happened there was basically I had to turn the tank, which made the gun really inaccurate because I had to move the tracks, and then I was unable to get the clutch shot off on the Tiger. So that's something you really have to watch out for in the PZSFL. The gun arc is really thin. It's more like, feels more like an artillery. Again, just the flexibility that gun depression gives on this tank is just simply incredible. So at the moment, Jingles and Ike are flanking around the other side. I have an execution shot there on the enemy PZSFL. And now this is a really good chance for you to just see how good this gun depression is. Literally coming up over the slope. Absolutely awesome. I should have aimed a little bit more there, but I was worried about the KV-1S on my flank. Looks like I'm going to get a second chance, and what the hell? That Churchill was up on his side. How ridiculous was that? We managed to sneak the kill. Cheeky 5 damage there. Run, 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 Mr. KV-1S. Not quite fast enough. And that's where the alpha damage really does. It's very nice to have. If I was in a Jagdpanther, I wouldn't have got the kill there most of the time. I guess if I rolled really, really, really high, there was a chance that I could penetrate him and do 368 damage. But basically, if I hit that KV-1 there with the very high penetration and the very high alpha damage on this gun, it was a guaranteed kill. Now, I picked out this gameplay not because it was the most amazing, but basically because that really showed you where the PZSFL can perform. Very strong slopes where it can use its immense gun depression to be able to overpower the enemy. That's what it's all about, really. You guys, I've only got 6 shells left in that game, and it wasn't exactly the longest game. The game was over in 4 minutes, and I only had 6 shells remaining, and I didn't exactly fire like a maniac. You guys are probably seeing the ammunition. It is a real hindrance in this tank. Now, you guys got to see the PZSFL in its environment. That's on slopes using its amazing gun depression and pretty beastly gun to overpower its enemies. Let's take a look when things do go a little bit more hairy in the PZSFL. Okay guys, so here we're going to see a very good example of where the PZSFL really does struggle. Okay, so I've kind of been caught out of position. Maybe I was a bit too ambitious going here. Now I have a very sneaky leopard. Where's the shot? Okay, now I have a 5916 as well. Well, that was maybe a bit of bad RNG. The leopard really should have got one hit there. I can see most of his tank. The shell decided to waft away from the kill shot, which was here, and went up and bounced off his upper plate. We can see the outline of the leopard there. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Ouch. Ouch, ouch. 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 Okay, so I just got wrecked by a tier 5 scout tank and a tier 6 scout tank. I got absolutely wrecked. I'm in a tier 7 tank destroyer. If, for example, I was in a Jagdpanther and there was one tier 5 scout and a tier 6 scout shooting at me, I'd be laughing. I would just sit there, laugh all day, and just totally eradicate them. The 5916 is using the autoloader, which is one of the most deadly guns in the game at low tier, against scouts, against lightly armored artillery, and also now against the new German tank destroyers, which have got no armor. My mantlet didn't help me. None of my superstructure helped me. I've just been wrecked. Due to one bit of bad RNG, with the shot going up over the leopard, I got wrecked. So I managed to get the kill on him finally, and I try and hide from the 5916, who's still wrecking me. And I reload. Okay, so now it looks like I'm in a fairly standard position. Oh god, my gun arc is terrible. Oh god, I just got completely owned by a tier 6 light tank. And this guy's no slouch. I mean, he's a 1200 efficiency player. Very well played to him. He saw an opportunity to engage a lightly armored German tank destroyer, and he seized it, and he absolutely annihilated me. So I thought this was a great example of 2 of the real big fails that can happen in the PZSFL. Firstly, your alpha damage is so high and your armor is so low that often if you get a bit of bad RNG and you don't make the kill, then you're really left there and you don't have the armor to weather a storm even from a leopard and a 5916, which is rocking and rolling that autoloader. Looking back on it, he could have been using the 57mm. I'd have to really look into a bit more detail about the damage that I was taking during the replay. But that's not really the point here. It doesn't matter if he was using the autoloader at me or the 57mm. Both are more than capable of going through the terrible armor on this tank and making you look really stupid. I hope you guys appreciate it. I don't usually put fails of tanks during the gameplay reviews, but I feel that it's completely justified here. This moment in the gameplay really stuck with me and I thought very hard, and it was kind of one of the nails in the coffin for me, for my opinion on this tank. Nearly every other Tier 7 tank in the game would have eradicated that Leopard, and it would have eradicated that 5916. So what I did with the PZSFL is after I got the Mastery Badge in the tank, which was the game that you saw previous to this fail, I actually free experienced it, and I got rid of it. I'm not sure if I was playing it really badly or if I was just getting really unlucky, but I really could not make this tank work. I really didn't enjoy playing it, and I don't think it was very entertaining to play also on stream. And so it was one of the first tanks in a while, probably since the Churchill gun carrier, that I actually skipped a tank using free experience. In a way, I think I could have grit my teeth and bared the pain that it was to play this tank, and I would have probably learned something or two about playing squishy tank destroyers at range. However, now that I've got the Tier 8 German tank destroyer, I'm really not regretting it. The Tier 8 Borsig is just absolutely fantastic. It's an absolutely pleasure to play with the turret, and it can be hella sneaky, and it makes this tank look like garbage. So when I saw this tank for the first time on the test server, I was hella excited. A tank with insane gun depression, a really punchy, huge alpha damage gun. Those are the kind of things that really excited me. However, after playing it, I really feel that this is a tank where it's taken too much of a good thing too far. I figured that you can have all the gun depression in the world, but if you don't actually have any armor to make that gun depression work, then what's the point? You can have all the alpha damage in the world, but if you, for example, have a terrible gun arc like you do on this tank, you've got such horrible flexibility to be able to put your shots in and to really stop the enemy from just flanking you so hard. The main thing that really does it for me with this tank is the fact that the armor is just absolutely garbage. I really think that it should have had a mantlet. I think that this should have been thicker than 50. I think it should have been like 100mm. I'm not sure if they were trying to be historically accurate or if they were just trying to balance this tank, but I think at least force the enemies to aim outside of your mantlet on this tank. It would probably balance it. And the fact that you were seeing a Leopard and a 5916 just putting holes all over my tank here really showcased just how poor the armor is on it. The gun elevation on this tank is also bad, so quite often you can find yourself in situations where that poses you a problem. All in all, I absolutely love the Nashorn. I'll be doing a review on that soon, so don't worry. One of the key reasons why I'm probably doing this review so quickly is because I wanted to give you the garage view of this tank before I sell it. Now, this is just my opinion, guys. Maybe you can make this work. Maybe you're the best PZSFL player in the world. Maybe you'll show me your 1,200 average experience, getting 3,000 average damage a game, rocking and rolling this thing like a beast. And if you do, hats off to you. You have a lot more patience than I do. I just couldn't make this tank work. And I think a playstyle to make this tank work would have been inherently boring for me. I've highlighted all this tank's strengths and all of its weaknesses. All I'm saying is this isn't the tank for me, and based upon what I've told you, maybe you can decide if it is the tank for you. Anyway guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If it's been useful to you or you have enjoyed it, please consider rating it down below. It'd be really helpful to me. And tell me what you think about this PZSFL. Have you played it? What did you think of it if you have played it? And if you haven't played it, what do you think? Based on this review, is it a tank that you think is garbage? Do you think it's a tank that maybe I'm just playing wrong? Let me guys know what you think. So anyway, I've got some games coming up for you in the Nashorn. Definitely stay tuned and look for my, I know this is in reverse chronological order, but my Tier 6 German tank destroyer review. Anyway guys, thank you all so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.